Warzone Mobile is around the corner, and ahead of its release, I've received exclusive information from Call of Duty and Activision to share with you guys today about some pretty interesting things that Warzone Mobile is doing. I'm really interested in the game personally, and I'm looking forward to streaming it because it will take Warzone to a wider audience with more accessible options. And ahead of that release, I have some exclusive information and information that's been shared with us about how Warzone Mobile is going to work. Probably the most interesting element is that whilst it's already known that this game is going to have cross progression with console and PC, meaning you can level up weapons, unlock camos, and more, it actually goes a little bit further than that. To start with, this game shares an entire tech code base with pretty much every other Call of Duty, including the ones that are releasing on PC and console, which allows them to have access to pretty much every asset pool within those, things that are in the current versions of Call of Duties they can eventually use in their development pipeline, and it's creating a unified system effectively between mobile, PC, and console. And whilst these platforms won't play together, it does allow them to have a unified base for assets. So if a new map releases in Warzone, for example, that new map can make its way over to mobile. And this means that future updates for Warzone Mobile should have a good amount of content in it, and they're also including seasonal updates to Verdansk, meaning that the map itself is going to change over the progression of the mobile seasons. And to take that one step further, after the initial release of Warzone Mobile, they'll actually be synchronizing with the PC and console variants of the game and going straight into Season 3. So there won't be a separate seasonal system for Warzone Mobile, it ties into the seasonal structure of Call of Duty generally. But it will still have some of its own exclusive content and own updates to the game in the interim. But for the major seasonal releases, any new weapons that release in Call of Duty on PC and console will release on Warzone Mobile, and that's how the system is going to work. So on top of Verdansk getting regular changes within Warzone Mobile, whenever something changes or releases seasonally for the other maps, or something changes and updates, you should see that update appear in Warzone Mobile too to a certain extent. There are some other technical things that are occurring that fans of the console and PC variants are going to enjoy on Warzone Mobile. They've added an FOV slider, there is also the ability for slide cancelling, which is now returned, and they've added improved controller support, so you'll be able to play with a controller on Warzone Mobile. You'll have the similar movement system to Modern Warfare 3 with slide cancelling, and all of that is tied together with an FOV slider as well. So on top of the introduction of seasonal content, the dance changes, and the improvements they've made to make the game feel a little bit more aligned with Modern Warfare 3, there were a couple of mobile-specific changes that they've also thrown in, which I think are really interesting, and I think for those of you who are familiar with mobile games, some of these are actually really promising. So to start with, settings in-game have a shareable code and synchronize across all of your devices. The social system, for example, with Warzone Mobile is a shared social system as a Call of Duty account. So if you play Warzone Mobile on an iPhone and then switch to a Samsung, your settings will remain identical. Or if you switch between gaming on the go with a phone and gaming at home with a tablet, these are options that are available to you. But the settings go a little bit further as well, because if you'd like to share your settings with a friend, or maybe you're a content creator like me who wants to share them with your audience, settings have shareable codes. And this is very similar to the Valorant system for crosshairs, where you simply share a code which has a unique digit format to it, you enter that code on your game, or they copy paste it from their phone, Discord, whatever it so happens to be, hit enter, and you get the exact same settings as the person who would share the code with you. Or if there's somebody else's settings you want to try out, the same principle applies. On top of that, naturally with most mobile games, there is the ability to customize how certain button presses work or screen taps work, and that's pretty cool. But this goes a step further in Warzone Mobile because they've also added customizable HUDs as well. One of the things I find least attractive about mobile games are HUDs that are overwhelming because they're compensating for the fact that you're on a mobile screen or there's lots of various different controls, but in Warzone Mobile that isn't the case. First and foremost, obviously you have the ability to play with a controller, so you won't need all of the various touchscreen buttons available, but secondly, you can actually customize the HUD. And any HUD element that's on your screen has options to either hide that HUD element entirely, or make it a more minimalist variant, or have the full-blown variant of it. For example, your weapon switching in the bottom right corner, you can not only move where that element appears on the screen, but you can also make it minimalist or minimize itself by only showing one weapon and then the other weapon when you switch to it, negating the need to have both weapons visible on the HUD, taking up extra space. So pretty much every single HUD element in the game is going to have the ability to move the item, turn off the HUD element entirely, or make it more minimalist to reduce the amount of screen space that it's consuming, which is really cool. Warzone Mobile is also trying to take things a little bit further in terms of graphics and frame rate performance depending on the device that you have. There are going to be a variety of graphics options and FPS options, but for those of you using the latest iPhone devices with A17 chips, or anything with an M1 chip and above on certain iPads, for example, you will have the ability to use a peak graphics mode, which maximizes the graphical fidelity as much as it humanly can, and also produces the highest possible frame rates. But whether or not you use peak graphics, which allows full 1440p resolution textures and things like that, if you're just using any other device that doesn't feature that, the game itself will also be using a visual streaming system similar to the texture streaming that you see on Call of Duty generally. And what this means is that the more you play the game, visual streaming will progressively make your game look better and better over time. So after 5 games of Warzone Mobile and then 10 games of Warzone Mobile, the game progressively builds a visual system where those assets and textures stream into place in ways that make sense and are more efficient, both making the game look better whilst reducing the overall performance impact that visual streaming generally has. And there was a real emphasis on making sure that this game is as optimized as humanly possible going forward. Naturally, some phones and some tablets are going to be more powerful, but it looks as though they're looking to support more devices on peak graphics. And because of the way the visual streaming system works, allowing the assets to be streamed into the game and textures to be streamed into the game, it means that in time, it's a future-proof system as well. Because more devices will have more powerful processors to run peak graphics, and the visual streaming system will assist them in doing so, and allow the game to look better on more devices as they roll out in the future. So this is really interesting to see. I'm really hoping for a priority on frame rate, but it's nice to see that the visual elements of the game are going to look pretty clean depending on the device that you're using. The game is releasing with 3 core modes as well. There is Battle Royale, which features 120 real players on the Verdansk map. There is Resurgence, of course, for Rebirth Island. And then finally, there is Mobile Royale, which is a condensed, faster-paced version of the Royale experience for those of you who mobile game when you've only got a short break. So rather than having the prolonged experience of a Battle Royale, which can sometimes be around 20 minutes, you'll get a more condensed format of that. All of this is looking really promising, and Warzone Mobile is, generally speaking, looking really exciting because of its support for controllers, its FOV support, the fact that it supports various resolutions and frame rates, and if they nail the execution of this or get the game into a highly optimized space, I can see it being super popular. The ability to just pull out a controller and play some Warzone Mobile, like a Backbone controller, for example, is a really appealing idea. I think if you told most people they can play Verdansk and Rebirth Island on their phone, pretty much as soon as the game releases, that's already going to be an appealing factor. And when you bring in the kind of things that mobile gamers expect, like customizable HUDs, shareable settings codes, and things that just make a lot of sense, and hopefully really solid visuals and frame rates, I think they've got something with buckets of potential on their hands, and it's really exciting to see where it could go. We're going to be streaming Warzone Mobile when it releases on March the 21st, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. As always, folks, thank you for watching. Drop a like, drop a sub, and I'll see you in the next one.